Introducing the Australian Government Individual Landcarer Award. To help Umbagong Landcare Group manage over 50 hectares, Caroline is focused on recruiting members, planning their on-ground works, and identifying priority areas, coordinating with government contacts and the Indigenous community. Umbagong Landcare have the needs of the community at heart, acting as a conduit for community concerns. Caroline worked with the government land managers, politicians, and park care staff to encourage improved land and water management locally and elsewhere in the ACT. Caroline has produced a pamphlet for Umbagong Park that highlights wildlife and heritage values, as well as water issues. In addition, the group runs community stalls, gives presentations, and conducts guided walks with Indigenous owners. Eric has helped establish several groups, including the Upper Lachlan Catchment Coordination Committee Incorporated. He has established his own tree and shrub corridors and project managed many Rosalind Landcare activities. These include the 64-kilometre wildlife corridor, now listed as a New South Wales endangered ecological community, and a 3-year environmental trust project restoring and rehabilitating southern tablelands native vegetation. This includes field days and an annual Landcare in Schools event with Livestock Health and Pest Authority that educates on biodiversity, feral animals, tree planting and monitoring. To make sure they're getting it right, Eric has set up regular bird and wildlife monitoring at revegetation sites. Sue McKinnon established the Friends of Mitchell Creek in Palmerston to protect the unique ecological and amenity values of the biodiversity corridor amid rapid urbanisation. The creek is a natural drainage for the escarpment east of the city centre. It includes rare and endangered species and shares the highest number of reptile species for the Greater Darwin Conservation Reserve. As chair of the group, Sue has been a driving force behind their achievements in restoring and protecting the important riparian environment. Sue is great at getting broader community involvement, running community planting days, working with students, co-organising Landcare for singles, and running environmental protection projects. Russell Fry played a major role in the planning and implementation of the Upper Johnston Revegetation Project, the Lakes Corridor, and numerous projects that showed how applying improved farming practices can improve outcomes for both farmers and the environment. He has served as president of North Johnston and Eacham Landcare and is also founding president of Malanda Landcare. More recently, Russell has been mapping and controlling the serious peatweed Navarra sedge in the upland wet tropics pastures. His strong belief is that Landcare is about the sustainable use of natural resources to build sustainable farms that support our local communities as well as the environment. Bob has transformed a passion for his property into a whole-of-catchment approach that helps other landholders with best practice in watercourse rehabilitation and sustainable farming systems. 25 years ago, he formed the Upper River Torrens Landcare Group. His property is now an oasis of natural plants and animal habitats. Primary school to tertiary students have visited Bob's classroom on the river, including annual visits from Adelaide University. He also wrote Watercourse Management, a field guide. Bob hasn't said sorry not available over the past 25 years, visiting properties, inviting others to his, and making things happen. He uses his ability to inspire at various workshops, forums, and field days. Chris fosters relationships between volunteer groups, land managers, and other NGOs, encouraging volunteer training and teaching sustainable food growing and land care for growers in both urban and country areas. As president of the Southern Coast Care Association of Tasmania, Chris helped bring other local groups together to work on regional priorities in their local patch. Chris has made countless site visits across southern Tasmania as a volunteer to give hands-on advice to other coast carers and help them develop their own planning. Chris believes Landcare sustainability requires more focus on the volunteer. This was a principal objective for the Southern Coast Care Association of Tasmania's recent Filling the Gaps project. Effective landcare work requires good planning at the farm and catchment scale, and whole farm planning is an essential element of this. Peter knows this from experience of working on his own land. Peter believes farmers need to mitigate and adapt to a changing climate. He has been instrumental in the inception of new groups, as well as secretary of the Upper Hopkins Land Management Group for over a decade. He also believes landcare is best demonstrated by on-ground works. Peter's own particular focus has been on waterways, sustainable farming, and improving biodiversity, showing that corridors and wildlife refuges are an essential element of biodiversity enhancement. Severe degradation due to mismanagement over the decades means that the river is now a conservation case study. Greg was instrumental in establishing Conserving the Avon River Environment Incorporated, which he chairs, to represent all environmental community groups along the Avon and Dale rivers. Until recently, the importance of the Avon for Indigenous communities had been largely ignored. Greg's role has been to build capacity and acquire funding so that these issues can be addressed. On-ground work has focused on revegetation and waterway restoration, with fencing, sediment removal, water quality monitoring, control of erosion and environmental weeds. He has also emphasised the vital role of education and awareness for continued improvement along the river.